What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first Tequila Tuesday of the year of our Lord 2023. I've already screwed that up once writing it down. I don't know about the rest of you. I screwed it up on a tax form, which was not good. Probably not the right place to screw it up, actually. So we are here today talking about productivity per rep. If you've ever been in a sales leadership role, this is a metric that you need to know and understand and matters a lot more actually than top line revenue. And now, I don't know if you're going to get into this or not, Eldad, but productivity per employee, revenue per employee is an interesting metric that people are talking about. Eldad Postan-Koren is the founder and CEO of Win.ai, a really cool piece of technology that is all about killing the CRM. Is that too aggressive to say? I don't know. I hate updating the CRM. So does he. This is the type of swag that he sends out right here. So welcome to the show, man, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here. Jill, I'm with you. Who doesn't? That's true. You're right. I'm Eldad Postan-Koren. Briefly about myself, my background is very, very, very different, I think, like from the typical VP sales. So I was 7 years in the Israeli Navy. Scott made a joke at the beginning before we started that I'm still an officer. So I wake up late at night. So 7 years in the Israeli Navy. Then 7 years in the world of social entrepreneurship. I founded NGOs in Israel. And was the chairman of the Hebrew University Student Union. So, very different. Till the age of 30, yeah, that's right. It's 1 a.m. Thanks. And Scott, I didn't ask if it's fine that I'm with wine and not with tequila. It's okay?
It's okay. Yeah, we'll give you permission. Yeah.
Sorry for that. Anyway, so founded NGOs, and then around the age of 30, I did once again another shift in my life, and I went to work in high tech in startups in Israel. Worked a year and a half in an Israeli VC, and then joined one of the portfolio company named Dreamer Diabetes. Where I became the first salesperson. This was my first role as a salesperson. I was an individual contributor from SDR to customer success all over. And then 1 year later, I became the head of sales of the company and hired several AEs and SDRs and discovered how difficult it is to be a sales leader and what are the difficulties and the experiences from both being a salesperson and being a sales leader brought me to build Win.ai, and we can speak about that in a second, I think. Do you want me to elaborate now? Scott, lead me.
Yeah. No.
Okay, cool.
I'm staying in the shadows as much as I can.
Cool. Win.ai. So Win.ai comes from so I discovered that I love sales. And I love the energy, the combination between EQ and IQ. Part of one thing which is updating the CRM, as we said several times in the last 4 minutes. And then 1 year later, when I became the head of sales, I discovered how difficult it is to create the alignment between the different team members. Whether it's about how do they do discovery, how do they qualify leads, how do they manage the deals, how do they speak about the company, how do they speak about the product. And then I was very frustrated because I wanted everyone to work on the same methodology and on the same, creating alignment, and it was tough. So I went and spoke with super smart people, VP sales, CROs, and they all told me, write a playbook. So I wrote the playbook, and the day after I wrote the playbook, surprise, nobody used the playbook. And that was my personal motivation in building Win.ai. Win.ai is a real-time assistant for salespeople. What we know to do is 4 main things. It's a Zoom app, official Zoom app. So we know to do first to put the right agenda on the right side of the screen. So for example, that's a discovery conversation or a demo or negotiation or closing. So you have the right agenda on the right side of the screen, and we have different templates based on the different sales methodologies. And it's customizable. So that's first. Second, in real time, based on the conversation itself, we can say to the salesperson, hey, you covered that, you covered that, you covered that, you covered that, you haven't covered this and that and that, and you have 10 last minutes, which really helps to create the alignment between the different team members. Third, we help the salesperson to capture the notes and connect it with the right talking point. And last but not least is when the conversation is done, we push everything to the CRM, so you don't need to copy paste it to the CRM. That's WinAI. We raised $17 million for seed round. We are up and running for 1 year now. We raised money from Insight Partners and S Capital, used to be Sequoia Israel. And so it's a young startup, 25 people. We are still in the beta version, but things are moving quite fast. And I'm happy to be here. I think that productivity, whether it's about reducing the admin work of the salesperson, but also the adherent or the adoption of the playbook are two main things that we see now. People are dealing more and more about efficiency and about profitability. So those are things that we feel that now is the time to make it happen. So pausing for a sec for questions.
Yeah. Have you figured out how much time people are spending just inputting information, manual processes? How much time are we talking about that we actually can capture back by not having to type this stuff up? And by the way, if you've never done a demo of Win, you totally should. The first time that he showed it to me, I'm going to screw up my quote, but I was like, holy fuck, this thing just typed while I was talking. How is that? Like something like that. Like what just happened? So have you measured that yet?
Yes. So first of all, I think to clarify a couple of things. So today we have tons of different platforms who do live transcription. Even Zoom themselves, they have live transcription. Now there's a very interesting question. What do I do with 100 sentences, 200 sentences? Like it helps to some extent, but once again, when you have like this huge bulk of words, what do you do with that? The interesting IP or what we developed, our algorithms, is not just to give you the transcript. I'm going to be very transparent. We are Israelis, so our secret sauce is to be transparent. We are using a third-party company for the live transcription. This is not the IP. The IP is to understand each sentence. Okay, that's a sentence that speaks about a pain point. That's a sentence speaks about next step. That's just fluff. And take each sentence and understand, okay, that's a sentence that speaks about the pain point, but you have a full sentence. Like what's the interesting part? What's the essence of this sentence? So the classification, the understanding, the classification, and the essence of the sentence, that's the secret sauce. And this is the next level of note-taking. So that's just to clarify like what we do specifically. So from the point of view of how much admin work you have as a salesperson, so I'm gonna speak about two different components. So the first component is the time that it takes, but also a different thing is when do you do it? So most of us, we tend to postpone the things that we don't like to do, which is, the tedious work of writing and updating the CRM. So usually we will do it by the end of the day. When we will do it by the end of the day, maybe we took some notes on a notebook or somewhere. We lost the context. It's really hard to understand what happened. We forget if we have 4, 3, 4, 5 different demos along the day. It's really hard to remember, okay, so that was the pain point, or those are the major things that were mentioned during the conversation. And it really can help, change and affect the sales cycle. So first, what we do is we encourage salespeople to update the CRM just after the conversation is done. So when the conversation is done, we have a pop-up window that says, hey, update the CRM. Here's the data that we captured, just validate it. So that's first, to try to encourage people to do it right after the call, because then everything is fresh. The second thing is how much time that it takes, and the benchmark in the industry. And then going back to the initial question, the benchmark in the industry speaks about between 15 to 20% of the salesperson time is dedicated for admin work. So let's say you're working 8 hours a day. 2 hours, around 2 hours, an hour and a half will be dedicated for admin work. Now, let's say I'm reducing 50% of that, because we see, and people using the CRM, it takes them, they update the CRM on average like 4 minutes after the call is done, and it takes them 4 to 5 minutes. So from from 1 hour to 2 hours, we reduced it to 20 minutes, 30 minutes. In this time, you can do more calls, you can do more prospecting, you can go and be with your partner. It's not only about, to be a good salesperson, it's not about only doing more sales calls, it's also being more efficient and to be more happy with your life. So also work-life balance is also very important things. But the idea is to reduce the admin work and reduce the tedious work, and to increase productivity. So that's about the benchmark about updating the CRM. Elizabeth.
Yeah, and remind me how you pronounce your name. I know we're connected on LinkedIn. It's
Eldad. Eldad. It's a biblical name.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I obviously have to do a demo of this, but just can you elaborate a little on the playbook piece of that you said?
Yes.
I mean, I've had to rewrite playbooks in every company I've been to, right? And like,
how many of them were put on the shelf?
And you're right. They don't use, they don't refer, you're just always on them, like, go back to the playbook, and, source of truth. So elaborate on that.
I must show you something. Those are slides I gave a keynote a couple of days ago. I'm really proud of those slides, so I must share them. Sorry. So it looks like that. Okay. Sorry. Here we go. So that's the playbook.
Love that.
Right. It took me 2 hours to. So this is how we see the playbook. Everybody praise it, everybody loves it. You invest tons of time on that, but the reality, it looks like that. And nobody uses it. Like, if people read the playbook, usually it will be part of the onboarding, and that's it. They will forget it. It's not part of the day-to-day. And the challenge is, how do you make it part of your day-to-day? And that's basically the keynote is about that. But like, how do you make a playbook that people really use? And just to give you a spoiler, so it's we called it a playbook-ize. So it's a new verb that we're now pushing. So to build a sales team that is really aligned on the optimal approach to winning customers. So I think that the playbook, I will stop sharing my screen. So let's speak briefly about the playbook. So playbooks are the combination of our past experience, other people experience, sales books, sales podcasts, sales methodologies, MEDDIC, MEDDPICC, Pin Selling, Challenger, and all of those. This is, where you build the inspiration for the playbook. Now, probably you have 3 different components. You have process, you have a part of knowledge about the product, knowledge about competitors, and things like that. And you have the content of the emails, content of the calls, and things like that. And I think that process is really easy to make it part of the day-to-day of the salespeople in the CRM. You have different stages, different I don't know, fields to some extent, and but I have things to say about mandatory fields. Because it doesn't work, obviously. And knowledge, to some extent, maybe you can have LMS and some kind of learning. Once again, that's also a big problem, but we can speak about that afterwards. I think that the content is a really challenge because you are onboarding people, and you teach them something. There's a research from Harvard Business School that shows that like 80% of the data, people forget that what you teach them, 80% of what you teach them after 1 month or something like that, like ridiculous amount of lack of knowledge. And the problem we're trying to solve is how to make it part of life. And we're all on Zoom every day, tons of times. And instead of going to the shelf, and trying to encourage people to take from the shelf the playbook, let's put it on the right side of the screen and let's simplify it. And I don't need to have like 10 different pages of 20 different pages. Okay, I have a call, that's the playbook. I have a call, that's the playbook. And once again, the idea behind what we do is to take the different source of truth, whether it's Medic and MedPeak and the knowledge of Scott Lees and the knowledge of other VP cells of, I don't know, Snowflake and people like that, and to bring it within your playbook and then to give you an option to optimize it and customize it accordingly to your needs. So that's just briefly about playbook and playbookizing.
Yeah, my note that I put in there, in my experience, is less that people are just blatantly saying I'm not going to use this thing, and more that they think that they're using it. Like they think that they're following the process and following the pitch and everything that you want them to say. Elizabeth, how many times have you gone to a rep and that rep has said, I'm doing everything that you told me to do. I'm literally pitching exactly how you want me to. And you're like, yeah, there's no way. Right? And there used to be no proof at all. Now there's a way to tell for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether they're actually executing it. And that's some of, what Pete's trying to solve for here, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find too, is that, can you link to templates and whatnot in that? Because
Yes.
what I find too, like we might have a rep who's on vacation this week, and we roll out a change to the playbook and we stick it in there, and of course that's our source of truth, and then they forget to go look, and they're using old, templates or whatever.
So the idea is to have, once again, to have the templates, and I think that what Scott mentioned now is the measurement aspect of that. Like, are people adapting? So the first thing is to put it, but second is to measure it. I feel like it's important for the keynote. So you know what? Let me share a little bit more to give you a little bit more appetite. The 3 pillars of playbookizing is it goes back to this old cliche. Do you know that? Reps don't do what you expect, they do what you expect. So I think that these days are done. More enforcement is not the way how you playbookize your sales team. You need to enable it. You need not to enforce them. You need to find a way to show them it's a win-win. And this goes back to what I mentioned before. For the VP sales is higher adoption rate of the playbook. For the salesperson, less admin work. That's the win-win. So it's the same coin with the different different side of the different faces of the playbook. It should be easy. First of all, once again, going back to this slide, and so it should be one truth of source, but it's all should be very very easy. And in this on the keynote, I spoke about the easiest playbook on earth, which is 1 pill once a day. And even this playbook is hard to follow, right? And it's not about win rate; it's about our health. So I think once again, that's also to keep it simple, and once again to build your whole sales tech around it. But now this is the slide that I want to show you, that okay, so you built a playbook. Now you need to measure the adoption, and this is specifically what Scott spoke about. You need to see if people are in line with that or not. But that's not only enough. You need to compare it with the bottom line, with the performance of the salespeople. And by surprise, that's a spoiler alert, you will be very surprised that your best performers sometimes are very not aligned with your playbook. And it doesn't mean you have a problem with your best performers. It means that you have a problem with your playbook. So you need to change your playbook. and then to measure it again. And that's an ongoing process that we during part of WinAI is to to measure the adoption of the playbook and to change it from day to day if you want. Not that's the highly recommended not to change it from day to day, but the ability to bring changes within the to the field to the people is super easy. So the barrier between sometimes CROs and BP cells are very high level, but they want to bring some change to the sales call it's impossible. So here in a matter of seconds you can do it and measure if people are adopting this or not. I'm pausing because I will start pitching, and that's not a good thing for a salesperson.
Nice, thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you.
Let's see a demo.
So, hi, Eldad. We connected on LinkedIn, and I come from Seismic, so it's all about like contact management and learning management things. And so I'm thinking about, for example, our integration with our CRM, where it's floating, like as I move through stages, content's being delivered up to me, or learning, so I know what to do, playbooks, for example. So how does that compare to, and I'm not assuming that Seismic or how our integration works, but how would that either maybe work with a CMS or does it not? Would it take a
I love this question, and I will try to explain why. When we speak about a real-time assistant for salespeople, the intuitive thing is real-time battle cards and real-time cue cards, and there are several companies who are trying to do things like that. Also, Outreach have like a Kaya, a knowledge AI assistant, and that's very intuitive because we think, okay, so I don't know something. Hey, here's the answer, or here's the best way how to do objection handling. And I'm going to be very transparent. Once again, I'm Israeli. That was part of the idea, or the initial idea that we had back then, a year ago. We discovered a couple of things. First, that there are some challenges with the UX when I'm popping, things on the right side of the screen, for example, and that's new data that I need to process during conversation. For example, now Scott is sending things on the chat. As a salesperson, I'm blind to that. It's really hard for me to read new data and new information during conversation. So the cognitive burden is very, for some of us, maybe, I don't know, maybe it comes from different reasons, but for me, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and I know that for many other people, that's a challenge. But let's say that you can overcome this challenge with amazing UX. The second challenge that we discovered about gapping bridging the gap of knowledge for salespeople in real time, which potentially could be the combination between a real-time assistant with knowledge and knowledge base, is the lack of, and once again, maybe I can give also several explanation for that, but in many organizations, the knowledge base is a mess, and it's decentralized. And if it is centralized, many times it's not updated. If it is updated, many times the data is not structured in a short version. So you have like battle card, which is I don't know, 1,000 words. Now, I cannot show a battle card during a conversation during a conversation that I need to, maximum I can read like 2 lines. So I need the data to be very short and very sharp. So now you need to make some kind of digestion with the data from the knowledge base in order to make it very short. Now, on top of that, it's not enough you have a very short data, you also need to make it very updated. So there are several levels of challenges in the intuitive cue cards and battle cards in real time. We do have ideas how to tackle this. But once again, from our very short experience, it sounded good. The execution was very difficult, and made the onboarding. All of us want minimum onboarding for our product, right? We want people to get on the product, to see the value right away. When I start to ask sales enablement, hey guys, give me butter cards, and no, that's too short. That's too long. Make it short. Make it. It's a heavy lift, and we saw it's too difficult for them to make it happen. But once again, I think that, and this is the reason why we shifted to real-time assistant that helps you to follow the playbook and helps you to fill out the CRM. Which is, it's not a pivot, but it's a small pivot. But I think that in very soon we have some ideas how to tackle this problem. So for example, SaaSmake and other CMS are of course great source of truth, but now you need to understand how you can use it in real time with the challenges of real time.
No, thanks for that. I mean, it's everything you said is so true, where people are,
I'm sorry.
a great tool. No, it's okay. It's a part of what we solve for. So I'm just interested in how they would either work together or maybe, be something additional. So, but thanks for that.
Yeah, I totally, knowledge is power. That's also a cliche, but that's true. A salesperson that knows how to answer questions, the salesperson that knows how to handle objections, that's gold, right? It is a challenge in real time. The real times, if we have, I don't know, if we use a service over a product that in real time it should work and doesn't work, we freaked out. If your Netflix it doesn't work, you will be crazy. So the tolerance of people to things in real time is very, very low. It should work. It should work.
Let's talk for a second about productivity per rep.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit at first. Let's maybe define that for everybody. And then what are some benchmarks that maybe reps should be thinking about, and then maybe sales leaders?
Cool. Let's take, so if that's fine, Scott, I think what will help me is to take a step back and to speak about what is happening now in this new reality. So everybody, we speak about unit economics. So unit economics, we all know, revenue minus cost per product, per service. But nobody speaks about the vicious cycle of unit economics. And, we see less revenue because companies has less money from, whether it's a private or public company. So they have less money, they have less budget. And then we as sellers, we see less revenue. And then the CEO of the company see there's less revenue, and then they need to decrease the cost. And then we see layoffs. The challenge is many times in layoffs that not only, but also salespeople are being laid off. And then the vicious cycle of unit economics is when you're releasing your salespeople, your revenue is once again dropping. And I think the good answer, and that's part of, this is why I wanted to take a step back, because this is what we see happens now, everything. And this is why efficiency is crucial, because now we need to do more with less. And I think to do more with less comes in different angles. So first, to have more calls, that's obvious, right? But also to have shorter sales cycles, of course. To have shorter sales cycles, the time to money is better. You can deal with more deals on simultaneously. So I think that all of those components, and of course reducing the admin work is crucial for that, because this really helps you to be the machine. I said machine, now everybody thinks about generative AI, right? So forget that I said machine, but you want people to be very efficient. You want you want them to close deals. You don't want them. We didn't build Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it is in order to fulfill and then update it. It's a tool. It's a tool for us to track and to make sure that everything is updated and we're tracking everything. So I think that efficiency is first, like the win rate. How much time it takes to close a deal, how many deals we are holding simultaneously. And I think it's hard to give benchmarks because it's very different from one company to another, from one industry to another, from one if it's B2 SMB, B2 mid-market, B2 enterprise, so it varies. But I think that we know what we used to do, and now we need to do much better, because the world, they have changed. They changed the rules, and now we need to adapt.
Go ahead, Elizabeth. Did you have a comment?
Yeah. So do you have a kind of a high level framework for that by segment or anything, or is it really very customized per company?
That's awesome. So where we're aiming is to have a marketplace of that's the playbook for, I don't know, chips, and that's the playbook for software. That's the playbook for hardware. So this is where we're aiming. Still, it's once again, as I mentioned, it's a young startup, so we don't have it yet. But 100%, the idea is to have as much segmentation as we can have. But I want to take you one step further. During conversation, you as a seller or your team is facing with different customers. Now, let's take it to the future. During the conversation, you have the playbook that you tell them, okay, that's the playbook for, I don't know, demo. But during the conversation, the salesperson discovers things. Now, just imagine what happens if during the conversation, the playbook is dynamic and changes accordingly to the conversation. So, like, it sounds like science fiction, but this is where we're heading. So not only to have like a very static sales playbook that our technology knows to make sure that you are covering and helps you to cover it, but also a playbook that is changing according to the industry during the conversation, or during the size of the company, or or according to the pain points that the customer is mentioning. So that's and that's tailor-made for this specific customer. So this is where we're heading, and so segmentation overall, but also segmentation and personalization per salesperson, per customer. Sorry.
Well, that would be incredible, like additional playbooks.
It is. It is
amazing. What about a formula for the productivity? And obviously, like I've also at companies had different playbooks for. I've done a lot of enterprise, but also mid-market or emerging, which is be a very different step by step. So do you have any kind of ROI calculator, for lack of a better term, for productivity per rep?
That's amazing. That's a good question. I think that as a person who came from I shared in the beginning my background, so I think that the challenges of how do you measure yourself in the world of NGO is one of the biggest challenges, because you're doing education or leadership. How do you measure leadership? I think one of the beautiful things about sales and about startups is you have one bottom line, and that's the win rate, or how much money do you get within the company. So you can start. So I didn't come here with a formula, but I think that it's really easy to measure a salesperson based on the win rate and how much money do they get in benchmarking with other salespeople within the company or external. So the bottom line is really easy. The formula I'm still working on it, but you challenge me to think about it and to see if we can validate it with data. But the fact that you can measure the bottom line, that's priceless.
So that
Literally.
one thing that you want to think about is what you're actually trying to measure, so that the simple stuff we probably all know: 100 deals, 10 reps, productivity per rep is 10 deals. You can do the same thing with the revenue number, same thing with the number of meetings set or the number of meetings held. The more complicated lens is to view it over the lifespan of an entire customer. And that's tricky, especially in an early stage organization where customers haven't been around very long, right? But that one deal that I close for 100K might stick for 10 years, might grow a couple times during 10 years. We might raise the prices on them a few times. They might attract other customers for us because they become a case study or a testimonial. So it gets real complicated depending on what you're trying to measure, right? But the simple way, I think we all probably know: total revenue, total number of reps, that's the productivity number. I don't know if anybody else has had to calculate it in this more complicated way. I have. I've been sent down a rabbit hole that I never got out of before. You guys think I'm kidding? There's real pain behind it.
I'm picturing you in a rabbit hole now. I don't know. Maybe it's I had too much wine.
I thought I got to the end, they're like, well, what about this?
No, I think you raise a good point, Scott, about the value throughout the relationship, because I think we look at things that are so black and white. What is the total revenue? But what about, gray matters, right? There's the customer retention part of it and renewal part of it that comes from a customer feeling taken care of. And I'm not sure that that's all filtered in, especially if renewals go to customer success. So the role of the rep isn't always considered. Just a thought there.
I agree. But once again, Jill, actually, it's a very interesting conversation, not for this session, but who's responsible for upgrades? Is it customer success?
Resells,
yeah. It is interesting.
The initial rep, though, has a lot of influence on that, even if customer success is handling the actual, addendum or whatever.
Of course. I think that actually it's a good point. The leakage of data between the different stakeholders in the company. Let's speak about that. So you have a handoffs, right, between SDR to account executive, from one account executive to the other one because he got sick, and then to the customer success. And in the lifetime of a customer within a company, usually they get around 4 to 5 times that they are going through a discovery process. And it comes from the fact that even though we have Salesforce or we have the CRM, people don't fill out the CRM. And then, how ridiculous that people ask you the same questions once again, how it affects the relationship. So it means like they are not listening, right? They don't care. They don't really care about me. So I think that's once again, we haven't launched it, but we speak about continuity. And continuity starts with the SDR on the phone call, with usually very lean qualification, bond, old school, things like that. But then it goes usually to the account executive, which doing more deep qualification, and then the salesperson is have an additional conversation, and the data is tracked, and you have new data or deeper data, and then the customer success, and then they sign a deal, and then you have the customer success, and you have support. Data is not silos. should be, cross companies, and it should be over time. It's more like a city which is built, a historical city like Jerusalem. Jerusalem was not built in one day, right? They say Rome was not built in one day. Let's think about Jerusalem. I lived in Jerusalem for 10 years, and it's layer on layer. And the idea is with the continuity feature that now we are working on is, okay, so you have the first call, but on the second call, I can show you what happened on the first call, and you can build on top of that. So this also helps in the preparation of the conversation, but also in creating the continuity of the lifetime of the customer within the company, which really helps with the handoffs. And that's without even.
What's also missing, just in my experience and perspective, is that the handoff is like a beginning and an end, which it should never be. It should be a constant communication. Like even the notes you put in, well, Salesforce is what I use most recently, but the notes you put in there, so maybe CS sees that, or you have a handoff document, but then what never happens is a conversation about, like, when the customer has a problem, they typically reach out to the rep, but they're not having meetings. Like I always think, CS and sales should be having monthly meetings and talking about the health of the deal, and pain points that the customer maybe mentioned but couldn't afford to buy all the bells and whistles of your software when they first purchase from you, but those pain points just don't go away. And why does the communication go away? So anyway, conversation for another time maybe, but just as a pet peeve of mine. Anyway.
And this is without mentioning, someone is leaving the company. What happens then? Okay, maternity leave, things happens, life happens, but you want to keep your customers, and you want them to be part of your ecosystem. And how do you keep it happen? Now that's a real challenge.
Other questions for Eldad?
Eldad, do you see CSM teams using this too?
Yes. In short, no, but I will elaborate briefly. So part of CSM is onboarding, right? Very, very technical, very repetitive. Do you want them to make sure, like, do you want to have some kind of QA of what they do, if they do it well, if they if you didn't do a good job in onboarding a customer, the satisfaction will be decreased, the understanding of the full capacity and the full value of the product will be decreased. So first, for onboarding, I think that's beautiful product. Make sure that you're covering everything, super repetitive. So that's first. QBR, EBR, once again, very constructed, very repetitive. For the more soft and fluff conversation, hey, how are you, and things like that, and just maintaining the relationship, I think it's less relevant. But we all know that there is one thing which is very common in every sales call or every interaction with the customer. It's the next step, right? Every time you need to have the next step. Okay, so the next step could be very simplistic. Let's meet in 2 weeks from now. So there are aspects even in a very soft conversation, which is a very repetitive, but I think that some of the aspects of the customer success are more relevant for a product like that, and there are some aspects which are less. But you can also take it for the support world. The vision of WinAI is not to be on sales. The vision is to be the assistant, like the Alexa of all of the customer facing, from a sales development to support, and to help. And that's the new generation. We don't want to do the tedious work. We want to do the fun things. And I think that all of the customer facing people within the company can enjoy it. But once again, you need to be very focused. You're a startup. You need to start with something which is very small. It's a niche, and then to spread.
I'm presuming a good rule of thumb is anytime there'd be an entry into the CRM, this would be a good tool.
Yeah, I think so too. But since you mentioned the CRM, I think the problem we're solving is not updating the CRM. So it's really easy, and I'm to some extent a marketing guy. I hate updating the CRM. It's very easy to to get it. But what about HR? They have like tons of interviews, super repetitive. They don't update the CRM. They update some other platform. What about telemedicine? Super repetitive. They update on the how they call it, EMR, right?
What about the ATS, the applicant tracking system?
Yes. So I think we have tons of aspects in our life where we need to put data on and track what we do, and nobody likes to track what they do. No, nor salespeople and neither physicians. So that's I think this is where we're heading, and it's not only about sales. It's the fact that I can utilize the fact that we are using. We don't need to wait for Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse. We are now speaking on a digital challenge. Why not to augment it? Why not to track the data automatically? Why not to capture the data automatically? Why not to bring data from Seismic automatically during the conversation, right, Jessica? It's just a matter of it just makes sense. It just makes sense to have some kind of augmentation on top of the fact that we are now communicating, and most of our communication is on digital channels. So it's not about sales, it's about communication. It's about how to make the life of people easier and to make sure that they are focusing on what they like to do and not what they don't like to do. That's the vision.
Talk to us briefly. I know we're kind of coming up on time here. I know it's super late, so I don't want you to be up all night, but talk a little bit about the difference that you're experiencing from kind of a product-led sales motion versus a more traditional outbounding sales motion. What kind of advice or insight can you give salespeople and sales leaders who are maybe in a product-led motion for the first time or thinking about going into one? A little bit different angle.
Yeah. So we are also in the transition. So we are now the product is getting mature and mature. So we didn't start with product-led growth with the traditional PLG. We started with a very top-down approach. We're approaching VP sales. We are CROs, sales enablement, sales RevOps. But we do plan during Q2 to release a self-service product. I think that the one thing that is super important is to bring people who knows how to do it. And actually, I hired like a couple of months ago, because PLG now it's not the biggest buzzword, but it used to be a couple of months ago the biggest buzzword. Now everybody speaks about generative AI, but a couple of months ago everybody spoke about PLG. But how many people really know how to do PLG? And I think that to bring smart people and to being people with background who've done it is the one thing that I'm trying to do. So I hired a couple of months ago our director of growth. Actually led. There's a very famous. In Israel. It's a famous unicorn in the world of cybersecurity called Snyk, and he led all of the PLG motion of Snyk. Now it's a different audience. It's for developers and not for salespeople, but the principles are very similar. The perception is very similar, and I think that his capabilities and his knowledge are very, 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 very unique. in Israel for sure, but also worldwide. Not many people manage to build really an actual PLG, a product PLG machine that works. So I felt that I was very lucky to hire him, and he like refused. I love to say that Berging, because he refused for other companies to be there. So he picked us, and I think that's, you know, and Scott, it's interesting to speak in 6 months from now and to see if I was right or wrong. But he built it very strategically, and it's not only about, it's not a tactic decision to be PLG. It's strategic decision. It's what feature are you focusing on? How do you build your marketing funnel? How do you build your sales team? Is it PLG? Is it PLS? So it's not just a matter of, okay, that's the buzzword, so let's release a freemium version. No, that's a very deep decision that you need to take in advance and understand the consequences. My tip will bring, you know, smart people to the table, but I will need to see it, you know, see it in action.
Cool. Anybody else want to sneak a question in before we get out of here? No? All right, short and sweet. Eldad, any final thoughts? Any final thoughts for us?
Let me share one last slide, I think. First of all, I wanted to show you that because I really believe in this, and I think that we share the same love. I love sales, and I'm proud of being a salesperson. People ask about what's my main characteristic, and I said that I'm a SDR. I'm a SDR by heart. This is how I raised money for my startup. This is how I recruit people. This is how I raised quite a lot of money for my NGOs. This is how I get new customers. I'm SDR by heart, and I'm proud of this. And I think that I'm really happy to be part of this community and be part of, you know, people who you know, there are bad reputation for salespeople, and I think salespeople are the smartest and the sharpest. And I'm happy to be here with you, and I trying to spread this love to other salespeople. So thank you for that, for the opportunity, and would love to, you know, keep the communication open, the channel is open. I'm very active, too much active on social media sometimes. So find me there. Would love to speak with you. And thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for being a great salespeople.
All right, thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time on Tequila Tuesday. Ciao.
Bye bye. Good evening.